Throughout my life, I've endured a multitude of hurtful words. Some were aimed squarely at me. You're just a single woman, a disgrace. But none cut as deeply as the insult hurled at me by my own brother-in-law. I refused to let his venomous words slide without consequence. I am Amy Smith, 38 years old, unmarried yet fiercely independent and fully employed. You might wonder why I have a brother-in-law when I'm not even married. Well, that's because I'm engaged. My fiancé James is 6 years my junior. Our paths crossed through a mutual friend, and from the moment we met, sparks flew. My work life is incredibly demanding, often encroaching on my precious days off. Amidst this relentless hustle, I found solace in James. With him, I could finally unwind and savor moments of togetherness. James possesses skills I lack. He's a proficient cook, adept at sewing, and a diligent worker. When we decided to move in together, he seamlessly slipped into the role of caretaker, taking charge of household chores and even tending to my suits with care. I'm always apologizing, knowing how hectic your schedule is, I murmured, as I secured a reservation at a fancy restaurant for our upcoming day off. It had become customary for me to treat James to such dinners, a token of gratitude for his unwavering dedication. With the earnings from my own labor, I could afford to prioritize our time together, ensuring I clock out on time to match his bustling schedule. And while I might not possess his proficiency in housework, I take joy in contributing where I can. James frequently inquires about my family's plans for our impending gathering. Although we've already introduced our parents shortly after getting engaged, we're eager to host a dinner party where both families can mingle and bond. James has an older brother, while I have two younger siblings. Instead of waiting until the wedding, both sets of parents suggested an earlier rendezvous to foster familiarity among us all. Thus, we decided to unite both clans, parents and siblings alike. Unfortunately, my brother won't be able to make it due to work commitments, James lamented, his tone apologetic. I understand, James. Your brother's reputation as a skilled lawyer precedes him, I replied, offering reassurance. Although it's a pity we won't meet him this time, there's always the wedding for us to connect. Truth be told, I wasn't overly concerned. I believed it was crucial for the soon-to-be wed couple and their parents to forge bonds, even if some siblings couldn't join in. Sometimes my brother can be a bit unpredictable around new people, so I was worried about his behavior if he did show up. James confided, his demeanor tense with apprehension. However, on the day of the gathering, my brother-in-law was conspicuously absent, much to James' evident relief. Despite this absence, the party unfolded splendidly, with my own siblings in attendance, adding to the jovial atmosphere. Both sets of parents seemed to hit it off, and my siblings took a liking to James, easing my concerns. Reflecting on the event later, I couldn't help but feel it was a missed opportunity not to have met my brother-in-law. Yet, as time passed, I encountered him under different circumstances, only to find him displaying behavior that confirmed James's earlier concerns. In hindsight, I couldn't help but feel grateful that fate had spared me from a potentially unpleasant encounter at the dinner party. One day, my mother and I found ourselves at the university hospital. Concerned about her health, she had been referred to this renowned institution for a thorough evaluation following a visit to a local clinic near our family home. While her symptoms, including palpitations and dizziness, didn't initially raise alarm bells, I insisted on accompanying her to ensure her well-being, especially with our wedding looming on the horizon. Despite her youthful appearance in her mid-60s, the specter of potential serious illness loomed over my mother's health. Her decision to postpone marriage until her 40s had caused me considerable worry, but I felt a profound sense of indebtedness to her for raising my siblings so admirably. How about I cover the cost of a comprehensive checkup for you, Mom? I proposed earnestly, a conviction I had never felt more deeply. This is precisely why I work so hard, to be able to lend a hand in times like these when I can't afford to take time off from my family. As the tests couldn't be completed in a single day, we found ourselves making multiple trips to the hospital. However, tragedy struck during the second visit amidst the chaos of an exceptionally crowded day at the university hospital. With interminable queues stretching out before us, my mother and I found a quiet spot away from the bustling waiting area, where we could enjoy a cup of hot tea. Just as I settled in, my phone rang, likely a work-related call. Leaving my tea with my mother, I excused myself to take the call in a more private location. As expected, it was indeed a work-related inquiry. regarding whether I intended to change my surname upon joining the family register. After the call, I returned to my mother, only to find her visibly upset. What was all that shouting about in the hospital? I hope everything is all right with my mother, I thought anxiously. As soon as I realized that the commotion was directed at my mother, I hurried over to her side. She stood up, her gestures filled with apologies, bowing repeatedly to a well-dressed man who exuded an air of arrogance. Who was he? I wondered, taking in his expensive suit, luxurious accessories, and haughty demeanor. The man berating my mother seems to be a debt collector, I deduced, noting the lack of familiarity between them. Stepping forward, I interjected, "Excuse me for interrupting. Has my mother caused you any harm?" The man turned his attention towards me, sizing me up with a scrutinizing gaze. She placed a cup of tea or something on the seat, and when I sat down, it spilled and stained my suit. "What do you intend to do about it?" "I have important matters to attend to after this," he demanded impatiently. Upon closer inspection, I noticed a faint dampness on his suit, confirming his grievance. "I'm truly sorry about the inconvenience. Please allow me to cover the cost of dry cleaning." I attempted to placate him, but he cut me off, his voice growing louder with frustration. The escalating altercation caught the attention of passers-by, and soon a few nurses emerged, followed by a curious crowd. Sensing the need to defuse the situation, the man relented. "I'll let you off with a cleaning fee." He then turned to me, seeking my contact information. "Could you provide me with your details so I can arrange for reimbursement?" he asked, adopting a more composed tone. "Oh dear, I seem to have misplaced my business card. Usually, I'm more prepared for situations like this," remarked a passing security guard, offering his concern. Sensing tension, he inquired, "Is everything all right? Do you need assistance?" The man clicked his tongue disapprovingly before flinging his business card in my direction. "Make sure you give me a call," he demanded sternly. "There's no escaping this. I have close ties with this hospital, and they'll provide me with your details." Confusion and dismay washed over both my mother and me. Despite our apologies, the man's hostility persisted. I attempted to stand up for us, but he swiftly cut me down with a demeaning remark. "Look at you, single at your age. They say women have an expiration date, but you're not just expired, you're unsellable industrial waste. You're nothing but raw garbage, a single woman." His words dripped with disdain once more. As I braced myself to confront the insult hurled not just at me, but at my mother as well, the man suddenly bolted, evading the pursuing security guard. What an appalling display of rudeness. I'm seething. I seethed, my stomach roiling with disappointment at my inability to shield my mother from such disrespect. Acknowledging the concerned onlookers and security personnel with a light bow, I retrieved the business card that had been discarded at my feet. Curiosity piqued, I examined the name and title printed on it, feeling a mix of bewilderment and indignation. "So that's the root of this debacle," I muttered, resolving to cancel the checkup and return home, prioritizing my mother's emotional well-being. The memory of that man's venomous words fueled a simmering determination within me. I vowed to ensure he faced the consequences of his callous remarks against my mother and me. About a week later, I found myself at the courthouse. Unlike the scenarios often seen in American courtrooms, this wasn't about a suit-stained dispute. As I navigated the familiar halls, the sound of my heels echoed through the corridors, marking my path. Spotting a familiar face approaching from the far end of the main hall, I pondered my response. What should I say to him? I mused. Just as the question lingered in my mind, our eyes met as he passed by. "You're that trashy single woman from the other day, aren't you? What are you doing here?" he sneered, his contempt palpable. It was unmistakably the same man who had verbally attacked my mother and me previously. Though my instinct urged me to retaliate sharply, I knew better. Deep within, there was a desire to combat injustice with a strong sense of righteousness, a resolve to eradicate evil with every fiber of my being. "Oh, my apologies for the other day. You must be Tom Dixon from the Honeywell Law Office," I acknowledged calmly, disregarding his initial hostility, as the memory of his discarded business card resurfaced in my mind. However, my attempt at reconciliation only seemed to provoke him further. His expression twisted with disdain as he recounted the incident with the suit. "I had a client meeting at the hospital right after that," he grumbled, his tone laced with irritation. "And you disgraceful woman, have the audacity to soil my suit and then ignore my attempts to reach you. It was evident that Dixon was a lawyer by profession. Our chance encounter today was a result of his loud demeanor echoing through the corridors. Feeling the weight of curious eyes upon me, Dixon's taunts grew louder, ensuring that everyone within earshot could hear. He's just showing off, but if he keeps it up, I might have to call security. Unfortunately, the legal profession has its fair share of such individuals, I muttered to myself, shaking my head in exasperation, which seemed to further irk Dixon. "Mr. Dixon, your voice is carrying quite far," remarked a voice from behind me. Turning, I found a concerned individual approaching. "Mr. Dixon, is everything all right?" he inquired, casting a questioning glance at Dixon. Upon seeing the newcomer, Dixon's demeanor shifted, his tone suddenly subdued. "Oh no, not her again," he muttered under his breath, a noticeable change from his earlier bravado. As he retrieved a business card from his case, the man's eyes widened in recognition. Glancing at the card in my hand, I read the name Attorney Hannibal, partner at Honeywell Law Office. This must be Dixon's superior, the CEO of the firm. Upon recognizing me, Mr. Honeywell's demeanor transformed, his body trembling as he bowed deeply at a 90-degree angle in greeting. "Oh my, it's been too long," he exclaimed. I apologized profusely for Dixon's appalling behavior. He's my subordinate, and I assure you, this conduct is completely unacceptable. Meanwhile, a bewildered Tony Dixon stumbled into the scene, utterly clueless. "Mr. Honeywell, what's happening? Who is this woman?" he questioned, his frustration evident. "And why is she here?" he added, seething with resentment. "She's the one who ruined my suit and then had the audacity to overcharge me for dry cleaning." With a face turning a shade of blue, Mr. Honeywell seized Dixon by the collar and forced him into a bow. "Ouch! What's the meaning of this?" Dixon protested. Speaking in hushed tones, Honeywell delivered a stern reprimand. "How dare you, Dixon? This woman is a prosecutor, and furthermore, she's my former boss, Smith. She's renowned for her impeccable track record in winning every case she takes on." Lawyer Dixon stood dumbfounded, unable to reconcile the fact that the woman he had disparaged as garbage was, in fact, a prosecutor. "Yes, I am a lawyer," she affirmed. "Since childhood, I've been driven by a passion for justice. I was torn between pursuing a career as a police officer or a lawyer, but ultimately I chose the latter. My goal has always been to ensure that criminals face the consequences of their actions, even if I couldn't apprehend them myself. Working for the prosecution allows me to uphold the law and bring offenders to justice. That's why I'm frequently in and out of the courtroom for work. By the way," she continued, "Mr. Honeywell has a deep respect for me because I mentored him when he was a rookie. Despite his stern demeanor, the bond between a mentor and a protege never fades." Attorney Dixon, still reeling from the revelation, attempted to interject, but she didn't allow him the opportunity. "Mr. Honeywell, you've become an admirable man," she commended. "As for you, Mr. Dixon, I'll settle your dry cleaning bill promptly. I apologize for any inconvenience caused by my busy schedule." The mention of brother-in-law left Laura Dixon speechless, her mouth hanging open in disbelief. "James's fiancé? No way," he muttered, his voice catching as he froze in place. Glancing at the business card he'd flung at me earlier, I pieced together the puzzle. This rude individual was none other than my brother-in-law, who had missed a family wedding due to work commitments. Observing his complexion turn ashen, I addressed him sternly. "As a lawyer, you're well aware that derogatory remarks like 'a single woman is garbage' are considered deeply offensive. While I was prepared to cover the dry cleaning costs, your reaction was utterly unacceptable. Under the law, such behavior can result in a sentence of up to 1 year in prison, a fine of no more than $3,000, or both. Which option do you prefer?" I delivered the ultimatum with a smile playing on my lips. Realizing the gravity of his situation, Attorney Dixon sank to his knees, bowing humbly. "Please forgive me, especially if this were to attract media attention. I understand that assertive lawyers are particularly sensitive to public perception." Sometime later, I celebrated a joyous wedding and am now reveling in the bliss of newlywed life. James has embraced his role as a full-time house husband, allowing me to throw myself wholeheartedly into my work for the betterment of our family. Despite his earlier transgressions, my brother-in-law has since apologized profusely to both my mother and me. He even offered to settle the dispute, but I opted to let go of the dry cleaning bill and move on. I am confident in my ability to earn the money myself. It's likely that my brother-in-law's absence from the ceremony was due to feeling uncomfortable about the situation. As a consequence of his actions and the complaints from other customers, my brother-in-law's business has taken a significant hit. It's true what they say, bad deeds eventually come to light. I've made a vow to myself to safeguard this newfound happiness, ensuring that we can continue to support and uplift each other through life's challenges.